-1 degrees today, wind chill -4. Mind you, there's not a lot of wind, but it's still cold. I'm marching along a Roman road. This is Ermine Street. We're sort of midway between Aylesworth and the village of Sutton, and it's the village of Sutton that I'm targeting today. Been through it a few times, but never really stopped and had a good look around. So it's not a big place, but there are a few things of interest. So Sutton village is where we're heading. I'm going to continue down on Ermine Street for a while, and then we're going to swing off. So I'll see you in a mo. I'll let you have a read. It's called Sutton Cross. It's as much as anything the location of what was an Anglo-Saxon cross. It's referred to on that sign as a wayside cross because it's a crossing point between Ermine Street and Sutton Crossway, which is the main route from Castor into Sutton. So it's an intersection, and it dates back to Anglo-Saxon times, almost certain, probably 800s, 900s, and it was in its prime when it still had a cross and still had a shaft with a cross on top. It would have been spectacularly decorated, probably in colour as well. And they were primarily really for preaching the word of Christianity, which was still relatively new there. And this was going to be an intersection, lots of people, and they wanted a cross up there to show their Christian beliefs. But it was also used, as it said on the sign, as a meeting place, hence these steps, which are not original. They were built up to sort of show what it once looked like. I think during the time that they restored it for the Queen's Jubilee in 2002, they actually put a cross, or they put a shaft in there with a cross on top, but it wasn't genuine. The only thing that is left is the base and the hole, and that is it. And that is often the case. It's not dissimilar. Wherever you find these, there's one in Castor, there's one in Longthorpe Village, and that's all that survives. But it's old. Okay, we're leaving Ermine Street now and heading towards the village of Sutton, and this track has been around a long time. This track has been around at least as long as that cross has been around, so well over 1,000 years. This is known as Sutton Crossways, and before the tarmac road was there, if you were coming in from Castor or Aylesworth to Sutton Village, this is the track you would come along. So it's seen some traffic over a very long period of time. Sutton Village itself dates back to Anglo-Saxon times, so you know, probably 800s, 900s, something like that. Could have been a bit earlier than that. How do we know that? Well, we don't really. The layout of the streets is considered to be classic Anglo-Saxon. If I show you this map, which is fairly recent, you see there's like a square set of roads. That's how it was originally. Well, it's still there now, but there's a few add-ons have come along since. But yeah, classical sort of square, quadrant, call it what you like, inside which there would have been an enclosure where they would have kept their animals safe and protected from predators, be it human or animal. And that's considered classic Anglo-Saxon layout, and is seen at other Anglo-Saxon villages. So there's a few people that argue against that, but I'm going with that. It's an Anglo-Saxon village, and Obviously it's changed a lot since. It used to be would have been in Anglo-Saxon times, wooden buildings with thatched roofs, and obviously they're no longer here. There was a big fire in the 1680s. I'm not saying that burnt them all down. Some people say that it probably did, but they wouldn't be here today. All the housing stock today is more recent than that, but still quite old. Romans, we're near Castor. Romans were nearby, and there was a Roman fort nearby as well. We're not far from Watermill and all the other Roman settlements around here. So, me calling it Anglo-Saxon, there's probably a Roman somewhere way back. I'll say, well, I was there before they were there. And there's field ditches and enclosures that suggest that you can go back to, I don't know, Bronze Age and whatever. But in terms of organised settlement as a village is, it's Anglo-Saxon, definitely. Whenever I drive along the A47 and look across towards Sutton, I see this building on the left, and I've always thought, well, that's a classic old manor house. That could be an interesting village to go and look at. But from what I can see, it's a recent build. It's not an old house at all. It's called Sutton Lodge, and I think it was built as recently as only 10 years ago. It doesn't look like it, but I think they've made it look like an old house. It's actually a modern, almost new build. So I take my hat off to the people who built it, because that certainly looks like an old house. But I kept reading and reading and reading, and Sutton Lodge is not old. It's quite recent, but it looks good. Just coming into the village now on what is now known as Neen Way, which is the main street through the village. It's quite interesting reading up. I have no explanation for why this happened, but in the 1970s they changed all the road names around here. So this used to be, I think it was Main Street or Top Street, as you might expect it to be. And I guess that sounds a bit bland, I don't know. But they changed it to Neen Way. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. Your road name is your road name. You're sort of destroying history if you start changing the names, but they did. And they did the same with several of the other older roads around here. But this is now Neen Way, formerly known as Main Street or Top Street. You see these random things sometimes on these walks, not mentioned anywhere in any books. I mean, what is that? What is that block of random stone up against the wall? It obviously had a purpose, and I have no idea. No idea at all. Strange. Turning off now onto a road known as the Drift, and it always was the Drift, because up here on the left is the village pound, or was the village pound. The idea of the village pound was that if your animals strayed on the lands around here and were collected by other landowners, they ended up in the pound. And if you came and claimed them, you paid a fee. If you didn't claim them, they went off to market. And a lot of these villages had these pounds. I don't know how old it is. It might tell you on the sign. It doesn't. I suspect at least 1700s, possibly older than that. It's just an enclosure. And it wasn't here before 1860, it was elsewhere. It was actually where the railway bridge is. In fact, it would have probably been moved here in 1867 when the railway was built. It used to sit exactly where the railway bridge is now, which we'll see later. But they moved it here instead of just destroying it. I guess it was probably still used as a village pound. so they had to put it somewhere. That's good to see, in good nick. Just around the corner here is a building that's been really doing my head in somewhat when trying to research this village. It was a building that used to be the Cross Keys Public House, but can I find anything, and I mean literally anything to do with the Cross Keys pub here? The answer is no. I can tell you nothing about it, but old historical documents are adamant it was the Cross Keys Public House. It's very difficult to see, but I'll have a go. It's a small building that sits adjacent to the one we're passing now. And I think it's probably that one in the centre there. Doesn't look like a pub. I might even have the wrong building, but I think that's it there. If you know anything about the Cross Keys pub, yeah, make a comment underneath this one, because I'd love to know something about it. I know very little at the moment. Right, heading down into Manor Road now, another one whose name changed. This used to be Gore Lane, G-A-W Lane, which doesn't sound particularly pleasant. This is now Manor Road. The building on the left here, coming up, is the Manor farmhouse, which is the biggest farm, the main farm, the only farm in Sutton. Very nice building, built in 1700, updated in 1900. Apologise for the sun. There's a lot of very big and very expensive houses down here. Nothing Anglo-Saxon about these. Just in the background there is an old 1600s building, which I'd love to see, but it's got a very high hedge around it, so I don't know if we're going to be able to see that at all. If I can get a sneak, I will do, but I suspect we won't be able to see it. It's behind this high beech hedge up ahead. Well, there's a peep. We have seen it after all. 1600s. Nice. Coming up to Graham Road. Used to be known as, I think it was Bottom Road, or Back Road. It was one or the other. I think it was Bottom Road or Bottom Street. Certainly wasn't Graham Road, but it is now. The house directly ahead on the right dates back to the 1600s. 1600s and 1700s, there's different bits been added on. But it was the vicarage from 1851 onwards, once Sutton became its own parish. And the doorways we're seeing, the archway over the door in the centre there, that was put in place when it became a vicarage. No idea why, it's very Gothic. But it's, yeah, I like the design of it, it's very nice. How it fits with a vicarage, I'm not 100% sure, but it was a vicarage from 1851. There's another vicarage we'll see later on a much grander scale. Nice old building though. As I say, bits of it date back to the 1600s. Yeah, it's a lovely sort of, lovely design. Not sure what the badge at the top means. This is another old one as well, 1600s. Actually looks like a barn. You can see windows that have been filled in at the side. It could easily be ventilation holes, but it doesn't say it's a barn in old records, so I'm going to assume it's just an old house. Over 400 years old, that one. Right, heading back now towards Neenway. The road we're on now actually is relatively new compared with the others, because down to my left, you can't really see anything, but down there It's the track bed of the railway, which ploughed through Sutton in 1867. Not sure how much say they had in it, but yeah, came straight through the village, and they had to create another road here, otherwise it didn't make sense anymore. The old village pump on the left, that's original. It's not been put there, that's where it was. That's where you got your water from. Unfortunately, I can't read anything in terms of manufacturers. Nice though. This is a railway bridge that was smashed through the village when the line was built in 1867. The line itself is Wansford to Stamford, WSD. That's its code. Bridge number 7. Strange line. It was probably in the category of seemed like a good idea at the time when it was built, but it was closed by 1931, soon after the general strike decimated it. I mean, it carried passengers, but it primarily carried goods to Stamford Market, and the general strike pretty much destroyed that. It lost a lot of money and it just decided to close down. Must be one of the earliest dates for a line to close anywhere in the country. The building on the left is actually a listed building. It's what was known as an estate cottage, and I don't know what that means, but it is listed. It goes back a couple of hundred years at least. Oh, and no station here. Despite them carving the village into two, they didn't even give them a station. You either went to Wansford or you went to Wansford Road, which we might catch later on. Sutton Village sits between the two. I was going to say some lovely old cottages, but it's a cottage now. I suspect that was more than one cottage originally. Coming down towards the church, which we'll catch in a mo. I'm just going to turn off down what is now known as Lovers Lane. It's kind of inappropriate name for a village of this nature. It used to be known as, wait for it, Church Lane or Chapel Lane. I think it used both. But in the 1970s, they decided to call it Lovers Lane. Maybe there was a reason. Look at this. I love these. You do not see many of these anymore. Not the wall box, but VR, Queen Victoria. There's not many Queen Victoria wall boxes left now. They're still being used. Very nice. This is an old 1600s cottage, by the way. Not that I showed you much as we walked past. Can't see too much, but yeah, it's older than it looks actually. Somewhere down here used to be, and I'm hoping it's still here, the old sort of Victorian era reading room. I love reading rooms. There aren't many survivors, but reading rooms, literally where people used to congregate to read papers, journals, magazines and whatever back in Victorian days. It used to be down here. I know it used to be down here because I've got an old map with it on, and I'm hoping it's still here. There it is. I was looking on the wrong side of the path then. Yeah, still there. Dates back to late 1800s. I think they had their first parish meeting here, I read, in 1894. Does not look like it's been used much since, but it's still standing. The Sutton Village Reading Room. It might still be used for something, but I don't think they hold meetings in there. As with all churches in this area, Norman church dating back to 1100s, almost certainly being an Anglo-Saxon village. There would have been an Anglo-Saxon church, probably a wooden church, on the site beforehand, no doubt, but you'd have to go and do a time team job to prove that, but there would have been. Massively updated since 1100. A lot of work done in the 1800s. There won't be a lot of 1100 stuff left, and if there is, it'll probably be inside. Going to take a closer look in a moment. The Church of St. Michael and All Angels. The building there is thought to be a dovecot. In fact, it is a dovecot, which should be quite old. I'd like to get around the other side of it, but I don't think I can. A lovely, I think they call them bellcots at the top, with a bell in. I think if you go back pre-1930s, there were two of them, side by side up there. I don't know why. There is only one now. If I've got a picture of the two, I'll stick it up, but definitely used to have two. Let's pick a gravestone to have a look into, see if we have more success than the one at Upton. I don't know how you pronounce this one. Thomas Drage. D-R-A-G-E. Died September the 7th, 1863, aged 61 years. Presumably that's his wife, Anne. There's another one actually next door, so it's obviously a sort of family plot. Eliza, wife of Charles. Let's see what we can find out, and if I can find anything, I'll put it at the bottom of the screen as ever. It's unusual. I think that's the stone that used to sit at the foot of graves. You used to get a gravestone at the back of the grave and a smaller one at the front. I could be completely wrong. I've seen similar before. That's a big one. Somebody important in there. Yeah, thought it might be William Hopkinson. Here resteth the remains of Elizabeth, wife of William Landon Hopkinson, died 23rd of Jan 1836. Looks like a family grave, I suspect. William is on the other side. I can't read that. But it looks like a family grave. William was an important person around. I think he may well have been a vicar at the church. He certainly was a reverend, and he bought the land next to the church, now known as the Grange, which I hope to be able to see in a minute if we can get sight of it. He was a very important person, owned a lot of properties around here, obviously loved the village, and I suspect he probably was a vicar here before he fell in love with the place, but I don't know, there's no records. Some more of these small stones, I think they're footstones. The only problem is there isn't a main gravestone at the back of it. They tend to only have initials and dates on these footstones. There may be more to it than that, but I think that's what they are. They sit at the front with a bigger gravestone at the back. But where the bigger gravestone has gone, I don't know. Well, that's bad news, because that's where I was going. I will find a way. Footpath closed. Well, apart from that footpath being closed, which is a blow, I can't get to see the Grange, which was the manor house here. It is hidden in the trees, and I can't progress beyond this path. It's private, so that's disappointing. Because it's a lovely building. I'll have to put some photographs up, or a photograph up, because it's worth seeing. 1600s, massively upgraded I think in the 1800s, but it's in there. You'll have to make do with this photograph. This path used to go down to the river, and the Grange used to control access to it, because at the bottom of this path was a ford. Believe it or not, you used to be able to cross the Nene via the ford and come out in Stibbington, which made a bit more sense of Sutton really. You could use it as a through route to Stibbington, but the ford's obviously long since gone. Well, it says footpath closed ahead, but I was planning to walk down here, and I wonder how far I can get. Well, so far so good. I wonder at what point I cannot progress further. There's a couple of things I wanted to see down here. We're heading out of the village down towards the Nene. That's what I'm hoping to get to the banks of the river. Whether we'll succeed, we'll soon find out. There you go. Didn't really need to see a photograph, did we, in the end? I realised when I started heading away from the village on the footpath, you can see the Grange. Lovely building. 1600s, modified in the 1800s. And it was the manor house for Sutton. Still open at this point. Just dropped down off the footpath onto the track bed of the railway. We're looking back up towards Sutton now. Can't quite see the bridge, it's just round a corner at the top. And that's the track bed as it heads down towards Wansford Road station, which we may or may not see later on. I'm not sure where it is at the moment in terms of the development work that's going on there, but we'll take a look. Just veered off the path a little bit. One of the things I wanted to see down here was something I've never seen before. I saw it on an old map, which was an old quarry, Sutton Stone Pit, as they used to call them. And it used to be here. I mean, there's nothing to see. I think these undulations, grassed over holes and dips and hollows, sort of not dissimilar to Barnock, I suppose. This is where the quarry would have been. But nothing to see. Thought there might be the odd rock face, but I can't see any evidence. But this would have been Sutton Stone Pit. I'm confident of that. Oh, hard going this. The reason I'm trekking across all these fields primarily is to try and find a place that's absolutely fascinated me for a long, long time, and that's Sutton Watermill, also known as Bridge Mill. The reason it fascinates me is it's probably the oldest watermill site, known watermill site, in Peterborough. I was quite shocked when I read about the existence of this. It only runs off a small stream somewhere up ahead, and it really does date back. It goes back, we think, to 3rd or 4th centuries. It would have been a wooden mill. Into Anglo-Saxon times it would have been a wooden watermill, and then in the 1400s it was beefed up, and a stone building was built to replace the wooden building. So they were still milling into the 1400s, 1500s, and then there's some old records that say in the 1600s it was falling apart and it vanished in the late 1600s. But to be able to pinpoint where this was when it hasn't actually existed for over 400 years would give me a real buzz. I know roughly where it is. What I wanted to do is try and find some evidence of that building that was built in the 1400s and was lost in the 1600s. I have a rough idea where it was, and I want to go and take a look and see if I can find Sutton's Bridge Mill watermill. This Waterways Souththorpe Brook comes down from the village of Souththorpe up near Barnock, and this is the stream, the brook that powered the mill. It's actually quite full of water. I've never seen it with this much water on before. The mill is on this stream somewhere further up, or was, and we were talking a very long time ago now, so I need to sort of make my way up this stream somehow and see if I can find something. I need to move further upstream, I think, somehow. That looks interesting. I'm quite interested in that because that is not natural, that's man-made. There is something under the water there, it looks like a piece of stone. That's been deliberately put there to speed the water flow up, and you only get that on a watermill site if you've got the water wheel right in front of it, because you're trying to get the maximum speed out of that water to drive the wheel around. So just bear with me. So yeah, in theory that could suggest that the water wheel was right in front of me here, and as I say, in the early days this would have been a wooden mill. There would be nothing here to show for that, but it did get built on in the 1400s in terms of it was replaced by a stone building, which I think, if I remember right, it was 10 foot wide and 39 foot long. I would like to have seen a remnant, a piece of stone, something, but it's obviously been completely disbanded. I have a theory based on, again, something quite scratchy that I did read on the internet as to where that stone went, and I may actually go and try and find it in a mo, but I think with reasonable certainty that the mill was here. Now there are records, just to be fair, I say records, mentions in very, very old documents that the mill building, the stone one, sat underneath what is now the A47, which is up there. Now if that is right, then I'm wrong, but there's no logical reason for building a water flow like that to accelerate the flow of the water unless there was a water wheel in front of it. There'd be absolutely no reason at all. The crazy things I do. I just clambered up from that water chute, or whatever you want to call it, because I want to get to the other side. That means crossing the A47, which is not a sensible thing to do at all. I made it, still alive. This old gate is the gateway down to Wansford Road station. I'm not going to go down there just now because I'm trying to get behind this greenery here. Right, okay, I need to get down there. This could be good. Whoops. I bet you laughed at that. Wasn't a steep bank really, but it's wet and I was going to go at some point, so anyway, I'm down at the bottom now, not quite the way I intended to get to the bottom. What I'm looking for down here is what used to be, and it may not still be here, but on an old map there was what they used to call a sheep wash, which was literally that. They used to send their sheep through it to wash them. Obviously it wasn't as overgrown as this, so whether I'll find it or not, even if it still exists, I don't know. The reason I'm looking for it is because some pencil notes I made many years ago, and I don't know where I got the info from, said that the stone from the old Bridge Mill quarry, Bridge Mill Watermill, get it right, the stone from the mill was used to build the sheep dip. Now these sheep dips would normally be wooden, so if I find something that looks like a sheep dip and it's made of stone, then I found what is left of Bridge Mill, and that's what I've come to look for. So I'll try not to fall over again, but bearing in mind I've got to go back up again, but let's go and see if we can find that sheep dip. Well, there's water, and it looks like there's a stone edge in front of me as well, I think. Oh yeah, look. I think we might just have found what I was looking for. I know it's not conclusive, but there you can see some stone propping that bank up. This must be a sheep dip. There's no doubt about it, this is a sheep dip. It's separate from the Souththorpe Brook. It's surrounded by stone, and yeah, this is a sheep dip. So if that reference was right, then at least some of the stone around here came from the Watermill, without a doubt. And I'm quite pleased to have found this. I'd love to know for definite that these are stones from the old mill, but it's believable. The mill was not very far from here. Would have been easy to move it across. I thought the stones might be a bit bigger than this, but it's the only evidence I've got. It was documented somewhere that the stone from the mill crossed the road, the old road as it would have been then, to create this sheep dip, and I'll stick with that. And that's more like what I was looking for. Big, blocky, dressed stone, especially down the bottom there. I would say that's definitely from the mill. That is dressed stone, it's not natural. That's come from the mill. I'm certain of that, as I'm sure some of these loose stones around here. In fact, looking at this is probably where the water used to flow in, or where the sheep used to trudge along. This is a path of some sort. You got green stones on the left, or moss coloured stones on the left, and moss coloured stones on the right, and they're all chunky building stones, which is what I was looking for. So yeah, Sutton Bridge Mill remains are scattered down here. Good to find it. That's a bit random to find that in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. That's very nice, that is. Very nice. While I'm down here, this is the front of Wansford Road station. That would be the main building. I think there's a few other buildings down the other end. There's some sort of weighbridge building, if I remember. The one on the end, used for weighing goods, because they used to load up goods here. There used to be a goods yard next to it. But yeah, that's the main station itself, and it's sitting here quietly, and I understand it is going to be dismantled at some point, and it's going to be moved to the city centre end of the Nene Valley Railway to be the station there, which is good news, because it's not going to last here, because they're widening the A47 and this land's going to go, so at least it's going to be saved. But this is it on its original site, dating back to the 1860s. Right, I managed to clamber around the back, and this would be the front of the station in terms of, this is the platform where people would catch the train. You can see the platform in front is still in immaculate condition. It really has lasted. When you consider this station closed in 1929 for passengers, you know, it's nearly 100 years old, and this platform is still intact and still in great condition, as is the station building. There was somebody living here about 15 years ago. The first time I came down here, I was startled by the fact that I didn't get this far down, by the way, but as I was clambering down, the door opened and somebody came out. So I didn't come back again for some 10 years. But you can see it's kind of boarded up now, but it's been cleaned up and ready to move. If indeed that's what's happening, I believe it is. And that's Wansford Road station. Just departing Wansford Road now to head back towards Sutton. But these bridges on this line are truly wonderful. What a construction, made out of brick. I mean, how on earth do they do that? It's staggering. You can still see the black stains of steam engine smoke up at the very top. Superb bit of architecture, and I hope it survives. You know, it's quite nice out here now. It's probably still just above freezing, but when you're walking and clambering and falling down hills, it warms you up. So it's quite pleasant. I quite enjoyed that. I hope you found something of interest. You know, Sutton's not the biggest of our local villages, but there's little pockets of history in there, and I hope I did some of it justice. I'm pleased, because I'm a bit of a Watermill fanatic, I'm pleased I found what I did. Inconclusive or not, of Sutton Watermill. It's more than I've seen of it before. Good to see the old Wansford Road station again, which really should have been called Sutton in my opinion, but it's Wansford Road, because that won't be there for much longer. It's going to move, I think, and so yeah, I quite enjoyed that, and as I say, I hope you found something of interest. Anything I got wrong, anything I didn't understand, Cross Keys pub, stuff like that, if you know anything at all, don't be shy. You know, add your comments on YouTube, add your comments on Peterborough Images, wherever, because, you know, I learn from you lot. I'm not a Peterboroughian, so I learn from you guys and girls that have been around at the time, well, not medieval times, but certainly at the times when I wasn't here. So, yeah, any information, fire away. But aside from that, as ever, thank you very much for tuning in. I will be doing another one at some point in time, so hit that subscribe button down there. It's not subscribe as in you pay some money, but that little red thing in the corner. If you hit on that button, it'll just alert you when there's another video. That's all it does, and it tells me that people are watching, and that cheers me up. So thanks for tuning in. I will see you again at some time, and I'm off for a hot cup of tea.